Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, it's been a very exciting day today in Washington, D.C., because a very famous and important visitor has arrived and has been doing the rounds. And I'm, of course, referring to Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who many in Washington regard as the legitimate president of Belarus. So she came to Washington. She has already been to the State Department. She met Secretary of State Antony Blinken there, and she met Victoria Nuland. And
of course,
yeah, and some guy, Derek Chollet, I don't know who he is. So apparently she's also scheduled to meet Jake Sullivan, the Biden's national security advisor, and maybe even President Biden himself.
the big guy.
The big guy. She's also been on Morning Joe. And she was there with Senator Shaheen. Some of you, she was she's not famous for many things, Senator Shaheen, except that she was an absolutely rabid Russiagator, absolutely nuts in her claims about Putin, Trump, Putin. I mean, nuts on that. So naturally, she was there with Tikhanovskaya on Morning Joe. And what was interesting, it's not that interesting. I mean, she's done this before, but that her theme is always that the United States needs to impose sanctions on Belarus. So I'm reading now a report from CNN. It says, in an interview with CNN following her meeting at the State Department, Tikhanovskaya said she could not go into further details about the strong actions that the State Department was promising, but reiterated that she had, quote, asked the USA not to hesitate about imposing sanctions on the regime. It can be painful in the short-term perspective, but people are suffering now because of the regime, not because of sanctions. Now, there's always something very odd about would-be leaders of countries demanding that sanctions be imposed on their own countries, which is going to cause hardships on those countries. I mean, the idea presumably is that people get so upset about it and that it will lead to a rebellion against
the government. But it hasn't happened.
Hasn't happened. But let's say it does happen. Then you're basically talking about a civil war. You're talking about people getting killed. You don't know which way it's going to go. I mean, governments have a lot of guns. They're not going to. Governments don't just give up just like that. So if people are suffering, which itself is very strange for you to want your own countrymen to suffer, but if they're suffering and they take up arms against the government, then there's going to be bloodshed. And all sorts of horrific consequences, the outcome of which is very uncertain. Again, it's very strange for a would-be leader to want those sorts of events to take place in their own countries. Now, of course, here in the United States, everybody says, "Great, that's it. Yeah, we want to bring down Lukashenko, come what may."
We sanction everybody anyway.
What do they care? I mean, what does Shaheen care? I mean, Lukashenko, Putin, they're all the same to me. They will look alike. So and there she is. She's going for all these places. She's already given a long interview to the Atlantic Council. Yes. Which you can see on YouTube if you want. And so this is strange. Here's this woman. She got 10% of the vote. Let's say she got, the real numbers are 20%. How is she the, quote, legitimate, unquote, ruler of Belarus? She doesn't have any kind of support there other than this a tiny group of people. All right, Peter, what was your take?
She's been residing in Lithuania, correctly?
Yes.
Okay, George. She's in Washington now. Mm-hmm. So who did she pay for her plane ticket to Washington? Who knows? Was she picked up at the airport? Who picked her up? Who took her to the hotel? Who's paying for the hotel?
Right.
She's taken to CNN. Who took her to CNN? And then, she's on Morning Joe. I could that. Okay, that's MSNBC. Who took her there?
And I think she's.
So who's paying for this trip?
She'll be spending a few nights in DC, and I'm sure she's, in a comfy hotel.
Comfy, yes, okay. Maybe she meets up with Guaido. Who knows? Okay. No, we've been covering this very closely, and when a country is targeted for forced regime change, Washington doesn't give up. Okay, they're in for the long haul. Okay, and they have a lot of practice at doing this. Okay, now George and I warned when this was all heating up, is that don't fall for the usual trick, new elections. Don't do that, okay? Right. There is a counter handbook out there now of what not to do, and don't walk into the trap. Okay. Now, George and I are no friends of Lukashenko, one way or another, okay? I'm not, okay? Did he win 80, 90% of the vote? I kind of doubt it. Did he get 50% plus one? I'm absolutely sure he did, okay? Yeah. Just because there's so many state workers, okay? The economy is still very state driven, centered, and the people that work in these enterprises are not going to vote against their own best interests, irrespective of what they think of Mr. Lukashenko, okay? So again, a virtual unknown person is anointed by the political class in the West, and she is this for the purpose of yanking Belarus away, or at the very least, just causing chaos. And see, that's part of this devious playbook. Let's take Ukraine. What was the gambit? Take Ukraine in one full swoop, okay? Lost Crimea, lost the Donbass, right. Okay, and now what you have is an unstable state. Right. They wanted to see if they can't get it all. Well, we screwed up the place pretty badly, and it's Russia's neighbor. Oh, that's a good thing, right? They want to do the same thing with Belarus. Okay, right. Again and again and again. You have these anointed leaders by the West, they want their own people to suffer. That should tell you everything about the moral caliber and character of these people, these quislings. And that's what they are, quislings.
That's right. So once you say that, once you go to, and she's been doing the rounds in Europe as well. So when you go to these places, which are basically adversaries of Belarus, and you call for these adversaries to impose sanctions, then you basically completely nullified yourself as any kind of a potential leader. You have your core supporters, the quislings, the 5-10% who are bought and paid for by Western corporations, Western media, Western Foundation, the George Soros organizations. That probably takes into account about 5-10% of the public, but that's about it. And I guess it's quite a lucrative thing. I mean, she lives in Lithuania. I mean, it's not like she's gone back to Belarus and courageously, organizing political movements in Belarus. I mean, it's not doing that. I mean, whatever else you could say about the Bolsheviks, I mean, they were actually there. They were in Russia organizing. I mean, many of them went to prison. I mean, they took risks, but they were actually there. You're outside. All you're really doing is, traveling to all the capitals. You're feted, wined and dined, taken to these nice hotels, nice plush studios. Everyone flatters you, but you are irrelevant to the future of the country that you purport to lead.
Yeah, and the people of Belarus know it. Yeah. They know that this person is acting against their own interests. She doesn't represent them. Right. Yeah. See, they don't take into account the Blinkens and all the other people that are feeding her. Is that what do the Belarusian people think of this figure? They don't care. They don't care. Right. Because this is a dirty war. a dirty war. We have an ongoing dirty war against Syria. We have it against Venezuela. We have it against Russia. We have it against Belarus. Obviously, Belarus is much, much smaller. It's much weaker, and all this pressure they want to apply. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Oh, I mean,
But when you think about it, George, the people that are designing and trying to play out this playbook, it's a lucrative job. I mean, forced regime change is a good grift.
Right, that's right. And of course, the people of Belarus know, they may not like Lukashenko, but he has maintained stability in the country. He avoided all the awfulness of the cowboy capitalism years of the 90s. Kept all the industries going, manufacturing, this is very important, manufacturing industries going, maintained a reasonably living standards. The alternative will be chaos, a la Ukraine, and the industries sold off for a song to the Western corporations while everyone else is thrown out of work. That's what Tikhanovskaya represents. So, apart from the sanctions, but Western corporatist, takeover, which of course they love, all these Gene Shaheen and Joe Scarborough and the Atlantic Council. That's what they want. Yeah, throw open the economy and shove everyone out of work.
And as far as I know, Hunter Biden has time on his hands. Maybe he could be on a board somewhere. Okay.
On a board.
Because it was a matter of months after the illegal forced regime change in Ukraine. Where was Hunter? On Burisma, okay? Right. There's a lot of state companies in Belarus. He could, he couldn't multitask there, okay? And then make sure that his cronies come in, buy up the place for a song, okay, shut the places down, because the EU doesn't want anything that Ukraine built, because it could be competitive. Actually, Belarus has a high-end, high-tech, okay? Absorb that, suck that out there. No, what she's doing is, this is a recipe for the collapse of the Belarusian economy, okay? And then, she's paid, done.
That's it, that's it. Yeah,
it's very cynical what they're doing.
Very cynical, because that's the scenario of Ukraine, which is we'll buy up everything, all our cronies, the Hunter Bidens and everyone, they get rich, and in the meantime, we turn this state into a hostile anti-Russian battleground. Which is that's exactly the scenario they have in mind for Belarus. I mean, why are they meeting? Why does Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, meet with her? Why is he doing it? Well, because that's the person that they've decided to bank on. Their problem is, of course, that they don't really have any serious prospect of coming to power. They hope maybe there'll be some horrible crisis, if something happens to Lukashenko, or there's some awful natural disaster or whatever, industrial accident or whatever, and people turn against Lukashenko, and they'll come to her. But other than that, there really is no scenario by she can come to power.
And what they can do is, what about the cadre issue? Oh, they'll just get Americans to go there. They don't speak Russian, okay? They'll give them their Russian citizens. This has happened all through Eastern Europe, okay?
Yeah.
They bring in these kind of technocrats to run these ministries and all of that. They're not even from those countries, okay? Yeah. Or in some cases, they have a distant relationship, their great-grandfather or something like that.
But they speak the language. So.
Right, yeah, and then you hunt down the new Vindmans, okay? You're a lieutenant colonel. We'll make you a defense minister, okay? And hey, Vindman might even consider a consolation prize, but why not? Okay,
the consolation prize didn't get to be
He's a little guy. It's a smaller country. Works.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, they kind
Vindman, throw your hat in.
There's no particular reason. I don't see why you're Vindman. If he didn't get the defense ministry job in Kiev, he can't move to Minsk and do the same thing there. I mean, I think no, I think it's that it's exactly the scenario. But their problem is that they don't really have any serious prospect of this succeeding, and that's why all they can do is just to sow chaos. And they're going to be doing. I mean, there's going to be probably renewed coup attempts, maybe
Right.
assassination attempts, violent protests. I mean, all this is still coming. But as things stand, they don't look like there's any serious prospect of.
Well, one thing that works very much against the plotters is that playing the anti-Russia card it's going to be a hard sell. It's just going to be a hard sell. Okay, it's just not going to work there. Okay, not like a deeply divided, culturally divided Ukraine. Okay.
Yeah.
And anyway, this young Svetlana there, take a look what happened to Saakashvili. Okay, ooh, pretty checkered life there. You could be that person. You could be the new Saakashvili. Okay.
Right. No, I think that's a very good point about. I mean, Ukraine was very divided, and I think that's why color revolutions worked there. They worked in Yugoslavia as well. I mean, the Serbs were very divided. There was a kind of a 50-50 split on Milosevic, which is why they actually pulled that off. That the first of the color revolutions, the overthrow of Milosevic. But you can't always play that game. It works some places, many places it doesn't work. It didn't work in Russia. The attempt color revolution in Russia have failed. Color revolutions in Belarus have failed. So so it's but I know the Americans will just keep doing this and doing this and doing this. And again, just as we were talking earlier, color revolution failed in Venezuela as well.
And look, again, there are parallels. There's such amazing, obvious similarities. Look at in Venezuela, the plotters that the U.S. and its allies support. These people are rabid right-wing fanatics, and they're truly, to their bones, racist. Okay, Tony, don't you know that? Okay, yeah. You bleeding liberal. Right. Okay, and then and what they do is they get the most rabid anti-Russian, anti-Semitic groups in Ukraine, and you befriend them, you arm them, you money them, okay, and then you give them you get John McCain to stand next to them for a photo op to give you legitimacy, and then you get to go speak to the clowns in Think Tankistan in Washington. Okay, these are the type of people. They always pick these very extreme individuals that are by their nature very divisive. Okay. And that's one of their key elements here. In Belarus, that square in that circle is going to be really tough, but never underestimate how hard they will try.
How they will try. And that was the statement that was the readout from the meeting with in the State Department meeting with Tikhanovskaya, which is we must have fresh elections. And we always know, as I think in one of our crosstalk, I think Dima mentioned that in many countries they are terrified of elections. It's like they dread elections because they know when you have an election and you know that the EU and the Americans and the Soroses and everyone is just going to pile in, and God knows how it's all going to turn out. Because they're not going to accept the final.
We don't recognize it, no matter the outcome. We don't recognize.
But we'll have the violent protests. We don't recognize it. Yeah, I know. It says we only got 10% of the vote. We really are the winners. I am now the legitimate president. So that's the scenario that they played before, which is the violent rejection of the election results. And so that's why these elections, fresh elections, are a real menace. But Lukashenko's not going to buy into it. I mean, he's just
no. And just to kind of remind everyone, the Belarus case is unique in a sense that the Belarus and Russia have a union treaty now, and this is an internationally recognized document, and so. To one degree or another, I'm not an international lawyer, but this is a sovereign issue that involves Russia. Okay, so the Russians are looking at this very, very carefully. Okay, because this, in many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways, this is an extension of Russia. why am I quibbling here? Because when the Union Treaty was signed, both sides were obligated to do certain things about synchronizing their economies, currencies, all these type of things here, trade, customs. And Lukashenko, while he was a big cheerleader for it in the beginning, that's when Yeltsin was around. And the Union Treaty would give the opportunity to Lukashenko to run for the Russian presidency.
Right.
But then a man named Vladimir Putin showed up, okay?
Right.
So the Union Treaty has not been complete in every single way, but it has been complete enough for a, I want to choose my words carefully here, for a considerable level of sovereignty here. And that's why when you're messing with Belarus, you're messing with Russia at the same time. You know, buyer beware.
I think so. And I think Putin made that clear that any security threats or threats to public order in Belarus, we will take as domestic. These are domestic threats to public order. In other words, if things really get out of hand in Belarus, then the Russian security forces will intervene, because they say it's our country, and therefore, you know, we have an obligation to restore public order. So absolutely, that is the Russian position on that.
But we'll end on this here, George. You're right. This is noble information. These are speeches that the Russian president has given. They are on the Kremlin website in English. It's not like someone can say, we didn't know. It is knowable, and it is very clear, is that if you want to mess with Belarus that way, you're messing with us. Be wary, okay? These people are so callous. And you know what, George? Regime change. If it doesn't work, you go back to a different air-conditioned office in Washington, and you start all over with another country, okay? Right. It's a grift, everybody. Right. It's a grift.
Right. No, that's it. And of course, it's, you know, for Western policymakers and Western media types, the Joe Scarborough type, it's an opportunity to feel good about themselves, to congratulate themselves. Hey, we're on the side of democracy. Here is this very attractive, photogenic woman. She's like us. She's one of us. She's on the side of democracy. She's on the side of good.
And she doesn't like Putin, which makes it perfect.
She don't like Putin. What a coincidence. So they love it. You know, this is, you know, they say this is really great. So yeah, but of course, you know, which is so much of Western thinking about, you know, when they talk about democracy, you know, they're not serious about it. It's just an opportunity for them to feel good about themselves. You know, values. This is what we're about. We're sort of values. You know, they never really define what these values are, but they think, well, values, that's about us. You know, we're values.
Well, I think Svetlana is watching the scene very carefully. I'm sure she's watching what's going on with Venezuela's gold in the UK. And I wonder if she's making, you know, if we're talking a lot of money here, I mean, I'm available, okay? Yes. I mean, I can take some assets for you, okay? I mean, it seems like this is a new paradigm that you've developed, okay? I mean, Guaido, you know, I have more legitimacy than he does because I ran in a countrywide election. He never did. What am I, chicken feed, okay?
That's true. No, she actually ran for office. You never even did that.
What are your values here? I make so much fun of it because this is all so farcical. It is so farcical. You're absolutely right. You know, I call it morning joke and meager, okay? Because that's what they are, morning joke and meager, okay? And it's all about, wow, I feel so great about myself. That's all it's all about.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And then
you think either one of them can find Belarus on a map?
Of course not. You know, they just know, hey, well, you know, this guy Lukashenko, he's a bad guy. He's a friend of Putin's. Putin's a bad guy. Didn't Putin try to install Trump into the White House? So he's a bad guy. And there's Jean Shaheen, you know, never heard of other than the context of Russiagate. And there she is, you know, now, you know, toasting Tikhanovskaya. So, you know, there they all are congratulating themselves. Hey, we're so great. You know, all these terrible people, Putin, and look,
I wonder if they just, when they're talking about Russia again, I wonder what this woman thinks, like, what are these people talking about? But I'll agree. I'll go along with it.
yeah, exactly. You better
Why not?
Yeah,
I mean, they really believe, okay, maybe, they work with Guaido, they can work with me. Maybe I can get some assets out of it.
Remember all those Ukrainian guys, Yarosh, very sinister guys who traipsed around all these Senate offices. He was, oh, great Senator, yeah, Yarosh, he's another pro-democracy guy. Well, that's it. And
yeah, make sure you don't see his tattoos, okay?
Yeah. And that guy,
Yats is the man.
The
guy. Yats is the guy.
That's the guy. But there's also that other guy, the one who was head of Svoboda. I forgot his name.
I never can pronounce his name correctly.
Yeah. That's right. So they all
that guy.
They're all going around meeting, McCain and others, pumping their hand, crazy. So
they must think that these senators and politicians are the biggest joke they've ever met. I mean, you actually give me money to hate the Russians? All right, hey, it's my payday, and my ship has arrived.
Yeah. And there's a lot of money. I mean, because can you think of, all of the organizations, the EU organizations, the organizations in the United States who are funneling money to Tikhanovskaya. So, like all the National Endowment for Democracy, the International Republican Institute, the National Democratic Institute. That's a lot of money that's coming. And then if you think of all the organizations in the EU that also funnel money to her, plus then you have all the Soros organizations that funnel. She is not a poor woman. I mean, she's living high on the hog.
Well, you know what? I mean, depending on how things go, I mean, we're gonna somehow sabotage the economy. And she might say, oh, take your time. Okay, I'm in the penthouse here. I mean, you want me to go to a bombed out presidential palace?
Right, that's right. Yeah, but it's like the same with Navalny, who was, how many weeks did he spend in Germany, living in a very comfy country house? 5 weeks, was it? Or...
He was in the clover there, George.
Yeah. There's a couple of months. That looked a very spacious. You saw some of these footage. That looked a very spacious country house that he was living in Germany. So, again, living well. I mean, that's it's a good gig. This whole anti-Russia.
Well, I mean, and being an exile, it pays dividends. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, it can go either way. Okay. I mean, this is a career choice. Okay. This is what these people do. It's just an abomination. And it really, I've made a lot of jokes and made light of all this, but the people that are in the crosshairs are the Belarusian people, and they don't deserve this kind of machinations. They really don't.
No. Again, as we were talking about with Venezuela, sanctions after sanctions after sanctions. Now, the Belarusian, I think, can look after themselves a little better. I mean, they're not quite as bad off as Venezuela or Syria, but still, it's a hardship that they, wave after wave after wave of these sanctions without end, without any successful outcome, any prospect of a successful outcome.
I don't want to belabor the point, but okay, let's say forced regime changes. Is the EU going to accept Belarus anytime soon? No,
of course not.
Of course not. And so what's the payday?
Right.
Now, the payday is for people in their think tanks. Okay. Yeah. That's the pay. It's the Joe Scarboroughs. Okay. That's the payday. Right. Okay. Because once it's done, they just say, hey, mission accomplished. Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was like with the European Association Agreement, that they wanted Yanukovych to sign, and I could just imagine. I mean, I think it was like 1,000 pages, and he's going page after. But where's the money?
Right.
I've gone through it twice. I mean, I don't. How much money am I going to get?
No.
No money here. There's no money.
Exactly.
We're going to completely restructure your economy. That's okay. Right.
Exactly. Their own interest, how much money they can make off Ukraine, all the Hunter Biden times, and how can we turn this into a military battering ram against Russia? Somehow to get it into NATO. I mean, remember, NATO is committed officially to having Ukraine as a member. I mean, so, remember, that was a promise that was made in 2008. I mean, it was only because Russia responded with as much fury as it did that's been put on the back burner. But it's only on the back burner. I mean, there's still the ultimate aim is to get Ukraine into NATO and Belarus into NATO. EU, that's a different case, but yeah, definitely NATO. So yeah, the goal is really bad news for Belarus.
Yeah, small country,
right?
But it has a powerful neighbor. All right, everybody. Where, as we always end this here, we're on Locals, so type in thegaggle.locals.com. George and I are doing a series of Zoom interviews with gagglers, which very interesting experience, fun. The Gaggle store is up and running. Take a look at some of our merch. I like it. I'm going to buy a lot just for Team Crosstalk here in Moscow. So, Moscow will feel the Gaggle, okay? And we have a tip jar, which, as I like to start saying now, it doesn't fill itself, okay? It's not a self-licking ice cream cone. It's a tip jar, okay?
Right.
And we're doing some Q&As, right?
That's right, exactly. This is a new thing we started, which is that we'll be having a regular podcast in which we'll try and answer as many gagglers' questions and comments as possible. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And really, we need all the help that we can get. He really is.
Buddy is so hungry, he's trying to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Here. I mean, that tip jar is beginning to get empty. So any help that you can offer will be most appreciated. So the more you're able to help, the better our product will be. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye, buddy. See you soon. Bye-bye.